Look, you keep saying you want to close more deals, but what you're actually expecting is rejection. And that expectation is leaking out into every call. Your tone, your presence, your energy. In this lifetime, you get what your subconscious mind is trained to expect. Let me show you how to change that so you stop sabotaging the sale before it even starts. So we looked at what happens when you stop treating sales like a transaction and start seeing it for what it really is. That sales is for you as a salesperson it's a vehicle for personal transformation. You will build confidence. You will build certainty and self-belief. So the principles of Think and Grow Rich aren't just mindset tools. They're really strategic assets if you look at them that way. And they can create alignment in just about any area of your life. And without a doubt, we define sales as the transference of emotion. That sales is the process of transferring emotion from the seller to the buyer. And the primary emotion that's being transferred is certainty. Now, we say that the buyer has to have certainty in three key areas. They have to have certainty in the person they're buying from. They've got to see the seller, the salesperson, that's you, as an authority, as an expert. They don't want to just buy from somebody. They want to buy from somebody who knows their stuff. Second, they have to have absolute certainty that your product can solve their problem or get their need met. And third, they have to know that the company that you represent, and if you're the company, that it's integrous, that it's going to stand behind it. If you think of something that you've purchased in the last, 6 months, and you spent over $1,000 on, because I don't know how much certainty you need to, run in and buy a loaf of bread. But when you're making a decision, when you have to be sold and you're not just buying, right? Isn't it true that that's what you needed? You absolutely needed certainty. And when we buy things, we're buying on the emotion of certainty. We buy on emotion and we justify with logic. That's why selling isn't telling. That's why dumping a bunch of facts and figures. And you can, I've seen people say, I don't understand. Like I gave them all this data. I showed them all the charts. I gave them all the information and they didn't buy. Well, you built logical certainty, but not emotional certainty. We are emotional beings. So we buy on emotion and then we justify that purchase with the features and benefits. So certainly, absolutely, studying the principles of Think and Grow Rich builds certainty in you. And that's why it's such a powerful tool. And they really, the principles in the book unlock a level of influence that I think most salespeople never really tap into. So we started with 3 fundamental truths. First is that you cannot sell and you cannot serve your clients when you are in resentment energy. So we unpacked how resentment is any negative emotion. But in sales, if you have a negative emotion, a negative emotional charge towards money, towards success, towards people who are wealthy. If you feel like, the rich people don't pay their fair share, like I was taught growing up, is that, the only way rich people got successful is that, they took advantage of other people. And, here I was in the marketplace trying to sell things. I wanted to become rich, but I had this competing commitment that rich people were bad. You're never going to be able to, you never outperform your own self-belief. And people also hold negative resentment towards themselves. They don't feel worthy. They don't feel like they deserve it. And so this kind of limiting belief, these kinds of negative resentments, they act kind of as like a governor or like a control. It's a cybernetic mechanism, much like the thermostat is on your house. You set it and, the temperature in the house will never outperform that set measurement. And it's the same for our sales performance. If we're programmed to believe that, money's the root of all evil and that things aren't good, the economy's bad, then we're not going to be able to have the level of certainty we need in order to move our buyer to the level of certainty that they have to have. So you can say all the right things, you can have the perfect script, but if you're carrying hidden guilt or shame or fear or animosity around wealth, around wealthy people, you leak that energy. People feel it. You transmit it out to the world. You broadcast your energy signature. You know this. You know when you've met somebody and something's off on their energy. You can just tell. And I'm going to tell you, more often than not, it will cost you the close. The second thing we looked at is that you can't wing it, right? You can't fake it. Like I said, people can spot a phony. And you absolutely cannot rush it. Sales is a skill. You can't just, I see people who, jump on YouTube or a TikTok and they're going to try to learn, 10 quick closing tips. Even this is a great start. And I think everybody should, absolutely get started, but it's a skill. And if you put a little bit in, you get a little bit out. But if you put a whole lot in, you'll get a whole lot out. And in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill makes it very clear. Knowledge alone doesn't just create results. It's specialized knowledge. It's organized, it's practiced, and then it's implied with intention. And that's what creates power. And it leads to meaningful sales results. So if you're still winging it, if you're guessing it, guessing kills momentum. Guessing kills momentum. If you're going in and your strategy is, hoping that you say the right thing, or you've got some rehearsed, memorized script, but you don't understand how to move somebody from commitment objective to commitment objective to commitment objective in a really elegant way that maintains rapport and builds certainty along the way, chances are you're going to hear things like, let me think about it. The third thing we talked about, kind of strategy, is throughout the entire sales process, you have to stay in a position of authority. So we teach in the Martinelli sales system is that in every interaction with other human beings, there's a dynamic that's established. And in that dynamic, one person serves as an originator and the other person serves as a subject. Now, we have some of these dynamics programmed in our mind, right? We know that, a doctor, for instance, when we go and see a doctor, the doctor's in charge. He or she, we follow their lead. We were programmed at a very early age to follow the teacher, listen to the teacher. So some of these dynamic relationships are programmed. But when we go in to meet somebody and we're meeting somebody and we're working on business, somebody has to be the originator. Somebody has to lead. Somebody has to have authority in that relationship. Now, it's not power over somebody. It's that you are seen as such an authority and such an expert that the prospect submits, allowing you to take the lead, and then they begin to follow. So sales isn't about manipulation. It's really, if you think about it, it's about leadership. And leadership starts with certainty. If you think about it, what's the most important thing for any leader to do in any situation? The number one thing leaders do. They define reality. That's the number one role of a leader. And they define reality and they build certainty from that truth. So you're either leading in the conversation in sales, or the conversation is being led by that client's fear, a doubt, or assumption. And when you show up in your full authority, you're calm, you're congruent, you're clear, what happens is you create a space where decisions can happen. So those were the three kind of principles that we laid the foundation for. But they're just the beginning. Think and Grow Rich it's a masterwork in really internal mastery and really understanding yourself. So the next layer that we're going to explore today, and we're going to look at three, is I'm going to take you a little bit deeper into really how our self-concept, if you think about it, we have a self-concept. That self-concept is made up of our own self-image. That self-image is the image that I hold of me and the image that I believe you see in me. It's how I see me and how I believe you see me. Our self-concept is also held in place by our self-esteem. That's our personal self-regard. It's how I value me. It's what I believe I'm worth. And it's how I teach and train the world to treat me. And it's also our self-belief. The composite of those three things create a self-concept. And what happens is based on we look into into our self-identity and self-concept. What happens is we begin to create a story, and we tell ourselves that story, and then we rehearse that story. And then what happens is our willingness to lead with decision is shaped by that story and controls all the results that we get. We don't get what we want. We get what we believe we're worth. We get who we really are. And so this is where sales is less about tactics, and it's more about who you're willing to become. So let's look at principle number 4. It'll be number 1 for tonight, but number 4 kind of in this series. So in this journey is one of kind of the most overlooked, most misunderstood truths about sales. It's the one that separates people who know what to do from those who actually get paid for doing it. And the principle is you create what you expect. But here's the rub. Even if you don't want it, okay? So let me start with the hard truth. Most salespeople never really hear this or learn this. You are creating your results for the deal, for the sales conversation, for the outcome in advance. Now, whether you mean to or not, before the call ever starts, before you open your mouth, before you pick up the phone, before the buyer ever hears your pitch, you've already pre-programmed the outcome, certainly your performance. And sadly, what most people program is what they do not want. I can remember me like, look, I don't want to blow the sale, but I expected I would. I didn't want to look like a fool, but I expected I would. I don't want to lose out or miss on a commission because, this one I really needed. But I probably expected that it wouldn't happen. And not because I wanted to fail, but simply because I hadn't trained my expectation for what my real desire was. You see, most people think expectation is a function of intellectual intelligence. It's because we're thinking it, we think that it comes from the intellectual mind, that it's just something you do or you say to try to stay positive. But that's not how it works. Expectation comes from our emotional mind. Expectation is belief's cousin, and it lives in our subconscious mind. In our subconscious mind, that's where all of our beliefs and habits live. And the subconscious mind doesn't care what you hope for. It doesn't care what you hope happens. It only responds to what you rehearse repeatedly, emotionally, and without question. Let me say that another way. You don't get what you want. You get what you expect, especially when it's laced with emotion. So here's an example. You're getting ready for a sales call, and your internal dialogue starts to sound, if it's anything like mine was, they're probably not going to buy. They're probably not going to buy. I'm not sure if this one, I'm not sure. These people are too rich. They're not going to hire me. Or these people are too poor. They're not going to hire me. One of my rules is don't say no for somebody else, right? I used to say no for every buyer. Or I would say, boy, as soon as I can't tell them the price. As soon as I tell them the price, they're going to freak out. If I tell them that, it's going to be, $300 to clean the sofa, forget it. They're never going to buy. So think about that. Those aren't thoughts. Your subconscious mind doesn't hear that as a thought. It hears it as a directive. The subconscious mind, you understand, the subconscious mind has no ability to reason. The subconscious mind is deductive. It takes that as a suggestion. And your subconscious mind, just like Napoleon Hill teaches in Think and Grow Rich, it doesn't filter those out. It doesn't say, well, hold it, this doesn't serve Paul. It takes them as commands. That's the power, what Hill calls he dedicates an entire chapter. It's the chapter on autosuggestion. And I'm just going to read something just from my book on page 73. And he says, autosuggestion is the agency of control through which an individual may voluntarily feed his subconscious mind on thoughts of a creative nature, or by neglect, permit thoughts of a destructive nature to find their way into the rich garden of his mind. And then, as you would imagine, from the autosuggestion ties right to faith. So in the chapter on faith, on page 56, he says, any idea, he doesn't say any good idea. He doesn't say any, positive idea. He doesn't say any idea that's going to get you what you want. He says any idea, any plan, any purpose may be placed in the mind through repetition of thought. Any idea, good or bad. So, ask yourself, when if you could just kind of slow down your thinking, and just, for those of you who've been around for a while, I talk about observational thinking. If you could just slow down and just kind of listen and watch your thinking. If your thinking were a train of thought, and every thought, plan, or idea around the sales conversation that you've had with buyers for the last 6 months, and you can see each one of those cars going by as a train of thought, where's that train going? Like, what's being placed in your mind? I'll be very blunt. If the story you're repeating is that sales is hard, or that people won't pay, or that you're not ready, that or you hope you sound confident, then you're not just preparing for a call, you're pre-programming your own failure. And when the moment comes, you transmit the energy of that story. It shows up in your tonality. It shows up you'll start using hedging language. Like, I think this will help you. What do you mean you think it'll help me? Are you absolutely certain it will help me? Or do you think it'll help me? Your posture changes. Your pacing changes. Your very presence and energy. I cannot tell you the number of times in our sales program, we ask people to record their calls, and you hear it on the call. And they hear it too. And it's great training, because for the first time, they're hearing it. See, we think we're hiding our insecurity, but we're not. You're leaking it. And the buyer doesn't respond to your words. They respond to your energy. See, everybody's bilingual, right? Everybody speaks the language of vibration. You can be in a foreign country and see people communicating, and you can kind of feel what's going on. You may not understand the words, but you understand the vibe of what's happening. So this principle shows up everywhere in Think and Grow Rich. I mean, he opens the entire book right in the introduction. Right in the introduction, he says, truly, thoughts are things, and they're powerful things at that. He's not talking about philosophy. He's talking about mental causation. The subconscious mind is the creative mechanism. It brings to life the ideas that we focus on, that we dwell on, that we tell ourselves, especially those ideas that are infused with belief, or fear, or negative energy, and repetition. And in sales, that mechanism is running whether you want it to or not. So if you walk into a conversation expecting a rejection, your body will pull back. If you expect a price objection, your tone will tense. If you expect them to say, let me think about it, you unconsciously create the scenario. The questions that lead to them saying, let me think about it, you'll invite it in. Now, look, you're not doing it on purpose, but you're doing it predictably, because what you expect, you begin to prepare for. And what you prepare for, you begin to project. And what you project, they begin to reflect back to you. That's sales. Now, let me give you one more of Hill's most famous stories. This comes out of the book, and many of you who've read the book understand the story of 3 Feet from Gold, where Darby is in the middle of the Colorado gold rush, and his uncle finds gold, and he digs, he buys equipment, and he starts extracting gold. He finds one of like the most prosperous gold veins, and then, boom, it runs dry one day. And what does he do? He quits. He gives up. He sells everything to a junk man. And that junk man hires somebody with specialized knowledge. He gets a geologist, somebody who knows what they're doing. And the geologist says 3 feet over. And again, he strikes one of the richest gold veins ever found. So if you look at it, again, what happened? It's not that Darby didn't have the desire. And it wasn't that he didn't put effort in. He did. He had action. But he didn't have the expectation strong enough to sustain persistence. And he believed that the gold was gone. So he acted like it was. He took action. He set it up. His expectation became his experience. So where might you be mentally quitting 3 feet from gold in your sales process? Where have you stopped in the follow-up? Where might have you backed off on the close or slowed your momentum? Not because the sale was dead, but because your belief was. Not because the buyer wasn't ready, but because you weren't. And this is what Hill meant in the chapter on faith. Again, we go back to faith. In my book, it's page 51 and 52. Let me see what he says here. He says, you may convince the subconscious mind that you believe you will receive that which you ask for, and it will act upon that belief which your subconscious mind passes back to you in the form of faith, followed by definite plans for procuring that which you desire. Think about that. You can program anything into your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind believes it. And then it exports it with faith. And it goes out and it begins to filter how you see things, what you do, the people you attract. We'll talk about something modern. Think about the Apple Corporation. Think about Steve Jobs. The company was failing. Market share is going. The brand's gone. Jobs is gone. They fired him. And, everybody is saying Apple's done. But when Steve Jobs returns, he doesn't just fix the product, does he? He did much more than just fix the product. He fixed the vision of the company. He simplifies it. He focuses it. He imagines something far better than they've ever done. And he says, we have to be really clear about what we want people to know us for. See, that's expectation in action. They didn't just kind of rebuild the business. They reimagined the future and they aligned everything behind it. Not because the market said it was ready, but because they were ready, because of Jobs' leadership. They don't want to wait for proof before they believe. That's what leaders do. They train reality to respond to their belief. And that's what you've got to do in sales. And if you think about it, Apple's not a product company. They're not a brand. They're an ecosystem. Like I live in the Apple ecosystem. I couldn't change phones. If I had changed phones, dude, I'd have to change my wallet, how I manage my money. Everything would have to change. It's so sticky now. And that was a vision of Steve Jobs. And this is a tool that we teach in the Martinelli sales method. It's simple. But every morning, before your first call, just take 5 minutes, grab a notebook, and write the answers to these 2 questions. What result do I want to create for my clients today? What result do I want to create for my clients today? And the second question is, what do I have to believe about myself in order to help them receive it? Like, who do I need to be in order for them to be able to receive that kind of help? Not in your head. Don't type it out in your apps. No, your note app. Write it by hand because what you write, you invite. And when you write, you engage the subconscious mind. You give your nervous system a new order. You rehearse this outcome that you want instead of the one that you fear or doubt. And if you do it often enough, you stop trying to be confident and you start expecting to be confident. You start expecting the sale. You stop hoping they say yes, and you start assuming that they will, because it's congruent to how you're leading them in the close and in the entire conversation. That's the power of emotional expectation. So let me land the plane on this one. If you're not getting the results that you want in sales, don't start by changing your strategy, okay? Start by changing your expectation. Just start by changing your expectation. Like, what emotional frequency are you starting your day with? Like, what stories are you rehearsing? Are you rehearsing the story that, nobody's going to buy this? Are you rehearsing the story that, this is expensive? Are you rehearsing the story that, maybe I've got to give things away for free before they can buy? Are you rehearsing that, geez, maybe I need more bonuses? Like, what outcomes are you preparing for? Sales doesn't begin on the call. Sales begins in your expectation. Remember, sales is the transference of the emotion of certainty. The only place your buyer gets it is from you. In your imagination, that's where it starts. It starts in your belief. It starts in your energy. You are either broadcasting a reality that they can trust, or you're projecting hesitation that causes them uncertainty. So here's your challenge. Stop rehearsing failure. Stop rehearsing failure. Start imagining success. Walk into the conversation with a vision strong enough for them to believe in it. Clear it, emotionally anchored. And when you do that, you become the person who's 3 feet from gold. But you never stop digging until you find it. Hey, before we go any further, I just want to interrupt this because I want you to go and I want you to download a resource. It's called the Belief Upgrade Guide that I created for you. This guide is the reset button that most sales professionals never press. It's going to walk you through 10 identity level shifts that help you rewire how you show up and present yourself during a sale. Not just in what you say, but who you are when you say it. And I'm going to walk you side by side. And I'm going to take you step through the exact reframes and the reflections and these small micro agreements and actions that installed the beliefs that all the top closers operate from. Because see, we don't rise to your level of training. You rise really to your level of self-identity, your self-belief. We never outperform our own self-belief. If you've ever said, I know what to do, I just don't do it consistently. Or you felt that way, like I don't know why I don't do the things I know I should, like something gets in my way. This guide is the answer. It's going to help you close the gap between what you're capable of, what you know you can do, and what you're actually doing. Because if you think about it, that's really the biggest gap in life, the gap between what we know and what we do. And by realigning your own belief system behind your actions, you don't need more scripts. You need the internal congruency to carry yourself to the next level. It's called praxis, the integration of belief and behavior. And this guide is going to show you how to build it. Now, the link is right there in the description. Download it now and let's shift what you believe so you can shift what you create. And then come right back and watch the rest of this video. Let's look at principle number 5. It would be number 2 for tonight. And this is the principle. Decision is the bridge between potential and results. Again, this isn't normal like sales tactics and strategy. This is the mindset of sales. So let's be clear. In sales and in life, nothing moves, nothing happens until you make a decision. This decision is more than a moment. It truly is a bridge between you know what you're capable of doing and the results that you get. See, like you can have the best offer. You can have massive value to give. You can have the best product. You can even have the right buyer. But if you can't lead that process with confidence, if you can't make timely decisions, like if you can't pull the trigger and make a decision like in the middle of the conversation to pivot, the deal dies. If if you can't make a decision, you can't lead. Now, you probably heard the old school line, the ABCs of sales, right? Always be closing. But let's be honest. That mindset causes so many people to be pushy. They come across as desperate. And really, is that what's best for the client? Or is that what's best for you? In our system, we teach the opposite. We teach the opposite because when you're always closing, you put pressure on a buyer. It short circuits rapport. And what it does is it makes the entire conversation about you and not them. It's about you, not because you want to close. But that may not be the next commitment objective. That may not be what they're ready for. Have you ever just been looking? Like, honestly, like you come across, like you walk into the store, you've got money, you've got time, but you're not ready to buy. You literally are just looking. And you had the salesperson just won't leave you alone. And they're pushing and they're pushing. And, you say, I leave. It's not that I don't buy. I just don't buy from them. Because the commitment objective I was at was I was looking. And rather than saying, okay, is there something you're looking for? Is there somebody in mind that you're looking for? Are you shopping for yourself or someone else? Can I point you just in the right direction? Can I help you with that commitment objective? Can I help you meet the curiosity bug that you have? See, that's moving a person in a very logical way using emotional intelligence. What's best for them? And how can I help this person? But when we crowd them, we push them, what do? They pull back. They say, just send me some information. Or, let me think about it. And, while they go and think about it, and while you're sending the information, they become your best friend. They're just, their name is Casper. And they ghost you. Not because they weren't a fit. Don't blame them. Don't blame this. Don't blame the marketing company and say the sales, the leads suck. The lead didn't suck, but because they didn't feel safe. They didn't feel safe. They felt pressured. And you made it about yourself in closing, not about them having clarity on what the next right commitment objective for them was. Here's what Napoleon Hill says. This is on the chapter decision. This is 156 and 157. Indecision. And he says, analysis of several hundred people who had accumulated fortunes well beyond the $1 million mark disclosed the fact that every one of them had the habit of reaching decisions promptly and of changing those decisions slowly, if and when they were changed. And people who fail to accumulate money, without exception, they also have a habit of reaching decisions. They reach them very slowly, if at all. And they change those decisions very quickly and often. You see the difference? This applies right to sales. Indecision is a stall. Indecision is a stall. A decision absolutely sends a buying signal. And if we're trying to go just for close, do you know how many of those buying signals you miss? See, when you're in charge, and I'm not trying to ambush the sale with the close, and I can be calm and confident, and I can lead from authority and certainty, and I don't need to rush, and I don't need to push. I can come in with the posture that, I know exactly where this is going to go. I've done the work. I believe in what the result's going to be, and I'm here to help you. I'm not I would love to have your business, but I don't need your business. I often tell people, look, if this isn't right for you, know what, the Martinelli family, we're going to be okay. Okay? We're going to be okay. Whether you buy this or not, we're going to be okay. That's the posture I have. The truth is every sale begins with what we call a micro agreement, a micro yes. We call micro agreements in our course. And we don't just focus on the close. What we do is we focus on a sequence of decisions that lead to it. See, the sale doesn't happen at the end. That's not when you close. You close when you open. You close in that very first commitment objective. Let me just ask you this. Be honest. Have you ever been pitched to and the salesperson blew it in the first minute? Has that ever happened to you? They said something stupid. Maybe they blew it even before they got there because they called you late or showed up late, or they were disorganized, or they just wouldn't stop talking about things that had nothing to do with what you were there for. The close happens at the opening of the call. Leaning into that conversation, owning your authority, asking permission to engage in intelligence gathering, inviting the buyer to engage with clarity. Each of those moments, every single one of those things that I just said, and I rattled off 5, all of those are micro decisions that leads to what we call a micro agreement. And if you're passive in those early steps, like you don't think it matters, you won't close. You won't close. If you're willing to skip over all of those rapport building moments so that you can ambush to always be closing, forget it. The opportunity's already lost. So let's talk about one of the most decisive leadership moments in history. And it really truly shows the power of decision. It goes back to 1944. Eisenhower's our president, D-Day invasion. And what happens? If you read it, it's fascinating. We've been doing studies with World War II with the boys because we were going over to Japan, and we wanted to do that. Now we're studying the Revolutionary War because we're going to Philadelphia here in a couple of weeks. But as we studied that, there was conflicting weather reports. He had half of his generals were saying go, half of his generals were saying no. And like major risk either way. He knew if he delayed, he could cost thousands of lives. He had no guarantee it would work, but he made the call. And in the documentary we were watching, it showed his journal, and he said that I knew I was putting everything on the line, but I also knew that waiting, that doing nothing was more dangerous than acting. That's leadership. That's decision. And in sales, we have to be willing to make a decision, to move somebody from one commitment objective to the next. We have to make a decision to lead. We have to make the decision to step in with authority. It's never about the certainty of the outcome. It's about the certainty in yourself. Truly, I can't control whether the person buys or not, but I can control all the conditions in which they're going to say no. Okay, I can do that. I can control. I can control the majority of what they're going to think about in the process of making the decision. So ask yourself: Are you really driving a sale, or are you going into a sale trying to build commonality? Are you going in the sale thinking that rapport is getting them to like you? Like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to have a really good conversation. I can remember, man, in the early days when I was selling cleaning services, I'd walk out of the building and I think, oh my God, I just hit a home run. Because I was a great connector. I knew how to be friendly. I knew how to strike up a conversation. I knew how to make the other person feel important. The only problem was that I would be off to Pluto. So one time I was walking into a doctor's office. A manager was supposed to meet me. She's not there. Doctor meets me. He's going to walk me around the office. We end up in his office. We sit down and I see he's from the University of Pittsburgh. So what do? Oh, you're from Pittsburgh. I'm from Pittsburgh. Next thing you know, we're talking about pierogies and Italian sausage and everything but cleaning services. We hugged, laughed, patted me on the back. Mary, we'll get back to you. Never heard from the guy again. Never heard from him again. I was too friendly and too familiar. I wasn't an authority. He liked me, but was he gonna allow me to go in and clean his surgical center? I didn't build that level of authority. I didn't come across like the expert. I allowed the conversation to go off to Pluto. So ask yourself, are you trying to be friends? Are you really driving the sale? Are you really driving the conversation? Do you know how to tell what the next commitment objective is? Do you know how to take them from where they are when they first meet you? Do you know, but just from how they answer your first question, do you know which direction you need to move them into for the next commitment objective? If you don't, you're guessing. And so in every one of those sales conversations, one person is leading and the other person is following. And if you think that you're going to go into the sales conversation and it's going to be like, oh, we're just going to do this back and forth. You say something, I say something, you say something, no. People want to buy from an authority. If you hesitate to lead, the buyer senses that. If you default to passivity, they default to confusion. If you pause, they stall. But if you move with clarity, not pressure, not ego, but calm clarity, then people follow you. Why? Because most people are drowning in indecision. They're drowning in indecision. People can't make a decision. I mean, they go for lunch. Well, what are you going to have? They've got to take an opinion poll before they can order their own sandwich. People are drowning in indecision. People want to be told what to do. They want to be led. They want to be led. Holly and I are doing this big renovation in our backyard, and we have this designer, and she comes in with like we got to pick like faucets and stuff, right? And toilet seats, you know what? And she comes in and like there's 3,000 things that look, hey, time out. We're very quick decision makers. We hired you because you're an expert. You're a designer, right? So you know what this space should look like. We cast a vision. You have no questions about it, right? Great. Here's what we want to do. Narrow it to 3, give it to us, and don't leave, because we'll have a decision on every single thing. Everything. Like we'll pick it all. So we'll have one meeting, come with 3 options for all the things, and we're done. The lady didn't know what to do. She thought that this was going to be like a 6-week process. So no, this is not a 6-week process. And yes, I'm a D and Holly's an I, but Holly's a very quick decision maker. And we know what we want. And we wanted her to lead. I'm like, I'm paying you thousands of dollars as the designer. Design. And if she couldn't design, had she not been with the builder, I would not have gone with her as a designer. I would have found a different designer. She was afraid to lead. She wanted to be our friend. I didn't want a friend. I wanted a designer. I've got all of you guys as friends. I'm not looking for new friends. I was looking for a designer. And when you're meeting with people, they're looking for a coach. They're not looking for a friend. They've got friends. They're not looking for a big brother. They've got big brothers and big sisters. They're looking for a coach. And the moment you go in and you try to build rapport by commonality and you become their friend, you disqualify yourself as their coach. See, the person who brings decision to the table controls the conversation. They run the sale. So let's just drop in. Do you know where every conversation is going? Like before the call, do you have a commitment objective? Now look, I understand. Obviously, the commitment objective is always yes, you want to get to the close. I get that. But there's, like in our system, we teach that there's 11 steps, and each one of those steps, there's probably 5 key commitment objectives. Okay? Micro agreements that have to be met, that you have to check these 5 boxes in order to know that they have the level of certainty to go. And if they don't have enough certainty at that commitment objective, they are not ready to go. And you don't go. You go backwards and you run back at it again. Do you know where the conversation's going every single time you're in the call? Are you directing or are you reacting? Are you just answering questions? Is that what you're there for? Just to answer questions? They probably have ChatGPT. They don't need you. They've got Google. They don't need you. You're not there to answer questions. You're there to create questions. You're there to get them to think beyond the questions they have. You're there to take them and future pace them to something they haven't even imagined possible for their life. That's what you're doing when you're selling. Are you just kind of guiding people towards, the clear next step or hoping that they volunteer maybe to step forward? Or are you really creating an intelligent series of questions that lead them to that next decision? See, if you're still waiting for that perfect moment, if you're still kind of tiptoeing around objections, if you're hoping that they can see your value on their own, or maybe you can prove your value by giving them stuff away, you've already lost control. You already lost control of the conversation and consequently the close. Sales it's not about being liked. It's about being the decision maker. It's about being the trusted authority. And people trust the person who goes first. Again, something that we teach in the Martinelli sales method. As the sales professional in a dynamic relationship, your job is to create a space for a decision and then to hold that space until a decision is made. That's your job. You're not there to force. You're certainly not there to convince somebody. But your job is to create a space and then hold that space with so much belief, so much clarity, so much certainty that the buyer can't help but step in and model back what's being fed, model back the confidence and say yes. Now, I can tell you this, sometimes that space is uncomfortable. Sometimes you'll need to say, here's what I recommend. Here's what I recommend. Look, this is the next step. I'm ready if you are. And that simple act, by just saying that, just think about it. Say it right now. Here's what I recommend. Just say it right now. Nobody can hear you. Say, here's what I recommend. Here's what I recommend. Like, say it with authority. Sit up straight. Sit up straight. Sit up straight. And Dano, sit up straight. Come on. Sit up straight. And just like you're talking to somebody, say, look, here's what I recommend. Like, here's what I recommend. Say it. Practice it. Here's what I recommend. Say this. This is your next step. I'm ready if you are. This is your next step. Notice I can't even not do it. Notice how I'm nodding my head. This is your next step. I'm ready if you are. It's absolute certainty. Nah, I'm not, hey, I think this would be a good decision. I think you're really going to like it. No, here's what I recommend. This is your next step. I'm ready if you are. That simple act. That decision, right? The decision you just made right now to either play along with me or not play along with me speaks volumes about your willingness to do what it takes, about your willingness to lead. These kinds of decisions unlock momentum that wasn't available until you stepped in. That kind of momentum to say, hey, look, this is what I recommend. I'm ready if you are. This is your next step. I'm ready if you are. If you don't say that, then that whole possibility of an outcome is nowhere. Do you understand? It doesn't exist in the universe until you give birth to it. So here's what you need to do. You need to decide. Decide to stop waiting. Decide to lead. Decide to get uncomfortable. Decide to step into willingness. Decide to close the gap between what you could create and what you're actually creating. In the book, Hill lists indecision as one of the symptoms of fear. He has an entire chapter. It's the 6 ghosts of fear. And he defines it this way. He says that indecision is the habit of permitting others to do one's thinking. That's what indecision is. So on the other hand, decision is the gateway to power. And when you decide with clarity, with confidence, with belief, you don't just close more deals. You create a future that fear can no longer have access to. That's the truth. Okay, we'll look at principle number 6. So this will be number 3 for tonight. Okay. And this is one I think you could all probably, grab real easily and find pretty quick agreement with. And that is, imagination is like the hidden muscle of every closer. If you've ever seen somebody in sales who's like a closer, their gift is imagination. That's their gift. So most salespeople have never been taught what I'm about to share. You're not just closing the offer that's in front of the prospect right now. Like here, I'm selling you my sales program. I'm never selling my sales program. I'm not selling my sales program. I'm selling the future that they secretly hope is possible. That's what I'm selling. That's what you're selling. You're not selling coaching. You're not selling training. You're not selling your program. You're selling a future that they secretly hope is there. They're not buying your product. They're buying the picture in their mind of who they could become if they finally said yes to the right thing. Remember, we think in pictures. Think of a car. Think of a house. Think of a key. You don't see the word KEY. You see a key. You don't see the letters DOG. You see a dog. And you probably see a dog or a house or a car or a key that you're emotionally attached to. Like you don't see my dog. You don't see my car. You see your car, your dog, or the dog you grew up with, or a dog you love, or a dog that bit you, something that you're emotionally attached to. And I'm telling you, when you go and you meet with a prospect, when somebody says that they're willing to talk to you, they have a picture of something in their mind. They want something. That's why you're there. Whenever you go to buy something, you either want something solved or you want something new, right? You either have a problem that you need fixed or there's a desire that's unmet. And you have an image in your mind of what that would look like and more importantly, feel like. Ever walk into a store and say, if somebody says, can I help you? Say, no, I'm just looking. And what you're really doing is you're going through the aisles and you're scanning and it's like match, not a 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 match, not. But you'll know it when you see it. Like you'll feel it. Of course you do. Of course you do. We all do. Because we're driven by emotion. And your job isn't just to kind of explain what you do. It's to activate the future in their mind. It's to put yourself in control of that picture, to help them see it, to help them feel it, to help them believe in it before they ever make a decision. See, that's the power of imagination. And I believe it's probably one of the most underdeveloped skills in all of sales. I mean, if you can't see their future, if you can't feel the outcome, if you can't imagine it, if you can't communicate it with conviction and passion and absolute certainty, they won't buy because they can't see it. They can't feel it. They can't imagine it. People don't buy information. They buy vision. They buy the picture they believe that you can help them step into. That's what they buy. And that picture begins with you. Just like I shared about the story about Steve Jobs. He came in and he rejuvenated the company to bring it into this new era of massive growth. I mean, it was like, I think it was either the first or second $4 trillion company. Because he imagined and he painted the picture of an entirely new vision for the company. And vision is what people crave. Without it, they perish. And it doesn't mean they die. It means they live lost. And I'm telling you, it's sad. But today's world, lacking vision. Leadership, lacking vision. Our young people, lacking vision. Think and Grow Rich here I'm on page 100. There's a chapter on imagination. And he says, the imagination is literally the workshop wherein the imagination is literally the workshop wherein all plans are fashioned that are created by man. All plans are fashioned, created by man. That your imagination, it's a real place. It's the workshop of the mind. He doesn't say it's a luxury. He doesn't say, it would be nice to develop our imagination. No. It's a necessity. It's the workshop. It's the place where every result is built. Everything you see, just look in the room around you. I see a plant, I see lights, I see the microphone, camera, water bottle. Everything we see started in the mind of somebody, in the imagination of somebody. Not just an idea, an imagined idea. Everything you see represents the unrejected idea that somebody imagined this clicker for the PowerPoint. Somebody imagined the teleprompter. Somebody imagined your computer. What are you imagining? What are you helping your buyer imagine? Are you building an image of them having their problem solved with your solution? Are you building that? Have you gotten good at being able to communicate that in a really effective way that's fun, that's energizing? In sales, that workshop is where certainty is forged. After all, certainty is the key ingredient to success for sales. Period. Again, sales in its highest form, in its essence, is the transference of the emotion of certainty. And you will develop more certainty when you work on developing the muscle of imagination. And one of the key ways that you'll be able to transfer certainty to a prospect is by activating their imagination. But here's the problem. Most people stopped using their imagination the right way when they were like 3 years old, when they were in the sandbox years ago. They shut it down. They were told to get your head out of the clouds. You got to be realistic. And what happened is we started having our imagination used against us. We started to worry about what's the worst case scenario. And we begin to visualize the objection. We rehearse the rejection. We've traded vision for fear. We've replaced creativity with caution. And now you're trying to sell, a transformational offer from a transactional mindset. You're trying to sell transformation from a transactional mindset, and you're wondering why they're thinking about it. You're pitching products instead of painting possibility. Nobody needs coaching. Nobody needs another coaching program. Nobody needs another training session. They don't need it. They don't want it. But you know what they do want? They want what it will get them. They want what it'll get them. Because you know, and if you don't know, then you need to know this before you sell. You know, if they work with you, you're going to help them. Like right now, just by a show of hands, how many of you really believe in your heart of hearts that if somebody would commit 90 days to work with you one-on-one, that you could help them increase the quality of their life? Yes or no? Show me. Then that's what you've got to bring. If you know that you can go into an organization and change it and make it happen. I'm looking at Trish Bozzoni right now. I mean, this woman goes in a male-dominated industry and changes their results to like they never in the automotive industry, where like they're the toughest people in the world. It's all about results. It's all about everything's a number. Everything's a number. The biggest wall in any car dealership is like the wall that shows the daily sales. They live and die by it. And she can go in and effect change because she has absolute certainty in her ability to do it. She doesn't wonder if she can help. She knows she can. And she conveys that with absolute certainty that they believe her. And not only do they believe her enough to buy, they believe that if they're not performing to her standard, they're the problem, not her. That's the level of certainty. And if you know that you're better than your results, like if you think back now, here we are, we're August, 7th or 8th. I want you to rewind your mind to April 15th. What number did you put at the bottom of your tax return? And if that number doesn't represent your potential, like if you know you're worth more than that number, then you need to develop this. You need to develop this ability. Because if you know it, you need to develop the ability to clearly communicate and articulate your value in helping them solve their problem and painting possibility. If you can't imagine the result before you sell it, you will never be congruent enough to transfer belief and certainty. That's it. In sales, imagination isn't fantasy. It's the promise you're selling. It's one of the most critical components for success. And here's what I want you to understand. The buyer's imagination is frozen. That's why you're there. They're stuck in whatever it is. They've tried and failed. They've heard promises before. They don't know what's possible for them. And they're waiting and they're hoping for someone to come in and speak possibility to them, to give them a version of themselves that they wish was still there and what would be possible, that's still alive. And you have to be that voice. You have to hold that vision, but you've got to create it in your mind. You have to describe a future so compelling, so clear, so resonant with who they long to become that they feel it's already in motion, like they can't wait to get started. That's imagination. That's emotional leadership. That's sales. I'll give you an example just from my own work. I once had a client who just kind of told me flat out that, they've been in programs before. They've done 3 programs and none of them work. I just don't think that I'm just not made for this. No, I could have jumped into the features and benefits of our program. I could have handled the objection any number of ways, certainly with logic. I could have listed all the things that our program includes. I could have given testimonials. But that doesn't build certainty. That just repeats what anybody else would say. And I just said this. Let me tell you what I see. Let me tell you what I see. Write that down. Write that down. If you're a coach and you sell coaching and you sell training, write that down. It's priceless. Maria, don't look at me. Write it down. It's priceless. Let me tell you what I see. I see a person who wouldn't be here if they still didn't believe that there was something more for them. I see someone who's tired of settling. And I see someone who, if they had the right support, they had the right tools, and they had the right mentor, I see somebody who's 90 days away from a completely different outcome. That's what I see. Do you see it too? And I just handed her the pen. Do you see it too? She's on the call today. She borrowed my belief because I gave her a future state to walk into. I activated her. I reminded her. I activated her imagination. And once she could see the possibility again, she bought. Not because I convinced her, but because I connected her to a vision of herself that she had forgotten how to believe in. That's what makes imagination possible. And that's what most salespeople skip. In the Martinelli sales method, we call this technique future pacing. It's taught in neurolinguistic programming. You're building and describing a desired future outcome. A desired future outcome. And the way you know it's a desired future outcome is because if you've done it right, way before then, you've walked them through all the pain of disconnect. You know where their pain is. Hill says here, again, we'll go back to imagination. This is on, He said, it is said that man can create anything he imagines. Isn't that true? Anything he imagines. Later in the chapter on imagination, he says, ideas are the beginning points of all fortunes. Think about that. Ideas are the beginning points of all fortunes. So let me ask you, are you merely presenting facts and figures? Or are you just kind of going through, well, the program is 6 weeks long or 9 weeks long, and you get this video and you can download worksheets? Or are you transferring imagination? Are you explaining what the program includes? Or are you describing who they'll become once they commit? Really think about this. And if you're not sure, that's fair. Record your next 5 or 6 calls and just listen back. See, nobody buys for features and benefits. They buy for transformation. They buy for a future promise. Like, how will this make my life better in the future? And the only way to make that promise real is for you to be able to paint that picture so clearly that they see themselves even before they pay. They see themselves in it. Now, you've got to develop this skill in being able to future pace in order to be able to create the image that they see. That's how you bypass resistance. That's how you create urgency without pressure. That's how you lead people into their next season of growth. I'll give you a simple practice. Before your next call, I want you just to close your eyes for 30 seconds. And I want you to ask, like, who is this person trying to become? People are hiring you to coach them or mentor them or train them. Why? Because they want to learn something? Is that why they're coming to you? No. It's because they're trying to become something. Not like what do they need? Not what do I offer? But who is this person longing to be? Like if they finally had the tools, if they finally had a partner in belief to get there, who do they want to become? And what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that version of them. Like feel their confidence, feel their clarity, feel their peace. Because see, when you speak to that person, your tone changes. Your tone changes. Your questions deepen. Your confidence goes up, it steadies. See, there is no private good. Do you see, when you build that image of them, you keep the original. That's the version of you that they're going to follow. Not the person who knows the script, not the person who knows all the features and benefits. I have sold, I don't know. We've had to do tens of millions of dollars in mentoring and coaching, okay? Nobody's ever asked me for my certificate. Nobody's ever asked like, oh, well, who certified you in coaching? It never even comes up. Because they're not buying that from me. They're buying from a person who sees the future. Their future. One more thing. There's a reason that most sales conversations feel like pressure and resistance. And that's because the salesperson is asking a buyer to make a decision from their current state. Well, their current state, by definition of them talking to you, if you're a coach or a trainer, like 90% of you on this call are, their current state is confusion. Their current state is stuckness. Their current state is I don't know. That's why you're there. That's their current state. They're anxious, they're uncertain, they're confused. See, but great closers don't do that. They don't just ask, do you want this or do you want that? They lead, can you see who you'll become through this? Can you see who you'll become? Can you see that future, Jim? Can you see how that can change everything for you? That shift alone can change everything. And oh my goodness, if you take the paintbrush out of your hand and put it in theirs and ask them, like, tell me, like, paint me a picture of what you see your life being. Like, let's imagine 6 months from now, you're able to do this with confidence. Let's imagine 6 months from now, you feel certain. Let's imagine what it would be like if now you've understood, the dynamics of personality styles and you really were operating a high level of emotional intelligence. Tell me what a board meeting looks like then. See, that's the art. That's the edge. The best sales people are not the best talkers. They're the clearest seers. They're the ones with the best vision. They've trained their imagination. They've trained their vision. They've trained their ability to communicate a future vision. They've trained their energy to match the result that they're offering. The result that they're offering. So if you want to close your close rate, stop focusing on tactics for a minute, okay? And start with imagination. Ask yourself, am I speaking from a place of vision? Am I selling the person in front of me or the person they could be? Am I seeing the buyer beyond their circumstances? Am I emotionally congruent with that future? Am I congruent with that future that I'm describing? Do I really believe that for them and for me? Those of you who are in Turning Point, it sounds like this. I see that and I believe that in you. Because when you sell with vision, you don't need to push. You don't need to push. You need to paint. You need to describe. You get to act. This is why I-style personalities are so great at sales. As long as they have a really good C person to kind of manage their calls and keep them to show up on time. And I'll just tell you, like when the vision is really clear enough, when the vision's clear enough, you make room for a decision. You hold room for the decision. And quite frankly, like the decision makes itself. Let me leave you with this. What you've just learned is just kind of surface level of what I would call sales strategy. It's deeper than technique. Okay. This is deeper than tactic. These are really principles drawn from this book, Think and Grow Rich. And, they have shaped the results of not just my life, but high performing entrepreneurs for a century. But the truth of just hearing the principle is not the same as living it. Transformation doesn't come from information. It's transformation. It's not an event. Transformation comes from repetition. Repetition is the mother of skill. It comes from support. It comes from being challenged in real time with real coaching, with real mentorship, getting real advice, real feedback from somebody who knows what they're doing, from somebody who has results. So today we went beyond scripts. We talked about the forces that shape your results before a sales call even begins, before you even work the script, like how your expectation creates momentum, how your ability to make decision moves a ball forward, and how your imagination activates the energy that your prospect needs to make a decision.